All right, guys, this is Coach Brian with the final part of your spring final review. I already recorded this once and my iPad just deleted it. So I'm going to go kind of quick here. A lot of this stuff is from our circles unit back in Unit 9. So I'm just going to jump right in. First, this question says to find the radius of the circle. Radius of the circle goes from the center to the edge of the circle. All right, in any direction. So technically both of these are the radius. And what they give us is they give us a central angle and an arc length. And so back in Unit 9, we had this formula that was for arc length, and it was theta, which is your central angle, over 360 equals your arc length over the circumference of the circle. So what I like to do is just take these equations and plug in everything I have and solve for what I need. So what I need actually is this r down here. I need that to be completely isolated. I need to get to the point where I have r equals something, okay? So I'm going to plug in everything I know. The central angle is 90 and the arc length is 7 pi. So first thing to make this a little more friendly is always try to reduce this fraction if you can. 90 over 360 can reduce to 1 over 4. 1 over 4 equals 7 pi over 2 pi r. Now I'm going to use what many of you guys call the butterfly method, where you just cross multiply. And so when I do that, I have 4 times 7 pi, which is 28 pi, equals 1 times 2 pi r. So ultimately, remember, I'm still trying to get r completely isolated. So I want to get rid of this 2 pi. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi. When you have a pi over a pi, they cancel. And 28 over 2 is 14. Look what I have left over here by itself, r. So the radius of this circle is 14. Going on to the next, it says Miss Reyes made a round pizza. The pizza is 18 inches across. She cut the pizza into equal pieces to give to her math students. There are 20 students in her class. What angle does each slice have, and what is the area of each slice? So we're looking for the theta. Okay, I'm going to sketch it on here. We're looking for the theta of each slice, and then we're going to look for the area. We're going to look for the area. So starting with the central angle, first of all, every circle, every circle is made up of 360 degrees. And she just sliced that 360 degrees into 20 equal pieces. And that means each of them was 18 degrees. So that's the theta, or the angle of each slice. And then also, we want to find out what each one of those slices' area was. So we take our whole circle, and we're going to find the area of it, which is pi r squared, and we're going to divide that 20 ways because there are 20 slices. So there's a little hint inside the instructions where it says the pi is 18 inches across. So if it's 18 inches across, the radius is going to be half of that. So half of 18 is 9. So we would plug that in here, and we have pi times 9 squared over 20. 9 squared is 81. 81 pi over 20 could be our answer. If they ask you to round it, or just type it into your calculator, or maybe this isn't an option you get, you could go ahead and multiply everything out, and 81 times pi divided by 20 will be 12.7 square inches. Next question. What's the equation of a circle with radius 2 and center 3, 4? Now again, this kind of goes back to Unit 9. Our circle equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So what are h and k and r? H and k are the coordinates of the center of our circle. R is our radius. So what we want to do is we want to replace all of these numbers. So h is 3, k is 4, r is 2. And so what we end up with is x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. And that matches letter A. The only thing I want to warn you about is if you ever get a negative question, negative center, so let's say HK was like -3, -4, when you plug that in, you would get, this is just an example, I'm going to write that for all the people who are just pausing this and clicking through on their Chromebooks. When you do x minus -3, that actually turns into positive. So these answer choices where you have positive, right here, positive, positive, their center is actually -3, -4. The center here is actually -3, -4. So you got to make sure you keep your signs straight when you're dealing with circle equations. All right, just a couple more. Julie can make a pizza with 6 different toppings, 2 sauce flavors, and 3 crust types. How many different pizzas can she make? So you could start this off with a chart like topping 1, topping 2, topping 3, topping 4, topping 5, topping 6. And then you could branch that into sauce 1, sauce 2, and you could keep going. There's 3 different crusts, crust, 1, 2, 3. And so what you would see is for each branch, all right, for each topping, you get 6 options. And there are 6 toppings. So if you drew all that out, you'd get 36 options. Another way you can do it is you can just take your numbers, since this is a combination problem, not a permutation, and you can do 6 times 2 times 3, which is 36 options. Now for our next one, this is going to be a little tougher because one, I just recorded this and spent a whole lot of time explaining it, and 2, now I got to do it again. So Ryan has a gardening shop where he's going to display 3 flowers in a specific order, and there are 15 different flowers he can display. So this is a permutation because the order matters. It is a specific order. So we didn't go over this super in-depth in class. We talked about what it was. We did some basic ones where you could draw some pictures. This one, the numbers are too big to draw pictures. And so what you need is a formula that you can use for permutations. And that formula is n factorial over r factorial and n minus r factorial. So hopefully you've seen factorial before, but you might not know what it means. But before we even talk about that, we need to talk about what are n and r. N is your total number of objects. So in this case, n is 15. We have 15 different flowers we could use. R is our number of how many things are in each combination, which in this case is 3. So we're going to replace all these numbers. Every n, I'm going to replace with 15, and every r, I'm going to replace with 3. All right, I'm going to draw this out to make a point. First, what is 15 factorial? Anytime you see something factorial, it's that number times every number less than it. So it's going to be 15 times 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, times 4, times 3, times 2, times 1. And I'm drawing this out like this to make a point, okay? Underneath here, you have 3 factorial, which is 3 times 2 times 1. And then you have 15 minus 3 factorial, which is 12 factorial. 12 times 11 times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6, 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay, the reason I'm doing that is because when you have numbers that match in the numerator and the denominator, they cancel out. So 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Those all cancel out. They all cancel out. So what you're left with, after all those cancel out, you're left with 15 times 14 times 13. Oh no, switch to my pen. 15 times 14 times 13, which is 2,730, over 3 times 2 times 1, which is 6. And so your total number of options is 455. All right, for our last question, we are doing some probabilities. There are 3 types of fruit in Hank's bag: 10 apples, 3 oranges, 7 bananas. So he has 20 total pieces of fruit. 20 total pieces of fruit. It says if Jaden picks one fruit, which statement is true? And you can have more than one true statement. So we're trying to test each one of these to see if they're true. All right, so for the first one, Jaden has a 15% chance of getting an orange. We want to check and see if that is true. He has 3 oranges, and there are 20 things inside of his bag. 3 out of 20, if you divide that, is 0.15. That is a 15% chance. So that is true. Let's test the next one. Jaden has a 70% chance of picking a banana. He has 7 bananas, and there are 20 pieces of fruit. If you divide that, that's 0.35, which is 35%, and that makes this one not true. Jaden has a 50% chance of picking an apple. He has 10 apples and 20 items. 10 out of 20 is 0.50, which is a 50% chance, making that true. Jaden has a 17.5% chance of selecting an apple or banana. When you have or, that means you could do one thing or another thing. And the more options you have, the better your odds are. So in this case, he could pick an apple. That's a 10 out of 20. Or a banana, which is 7 out of 20. And you're actually going to add those together when it's or, which means he has a 17 out of 20 chance, which is 85%. So 17.5 is way too low, and that's not true. Now the last one, it says Jaden has a 65% chance of selecting an apple and orange. When you get the word and, this is actually something that's tougher to do because you have to do both things. When you see and, you take your first likelihood or your first probability. So for an apple, that's 10 out of 20. And you multiply it with your second, which is an orange, which is 3 out of 20. So to do both of these things, you would multiply, and that would give you a 30 out of 400 chance, which could be reduced to 3 out of 40, which is only 7.5%. So not 65 and not correct. All right. Hopefully this one saves and uploads. Good luck on your final exams.